me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
Okay, so I have a story about children of the bushes, okay? That's what I call them. You know, like children of the corn. Because to this day, I don't know, I don't know what that was. For a while, I actually thought that like I had just like dreamt it all because it's like it's weird. But then I asked my cousin who is in the story. I was like, "Do you remember when?" And before like I finished like saying, she was like, "No, yes, I fucking remember." And like she carried on the story. I did something that was kind of messed up. She was like, "Yeah, no, I remember." I was like, "Oh my god, that was actually for real. Like that's crazy. That's so." At this time, we lived in this like we lived close to a forest. So it was like our house and then the next house and then that was the forest. So in between our house and the forest there was one more house, our neighbors, right? So we were like basically kind of surrounded by the forest, okay? It was not a favorite place to live, to be honest. I don't know, there was something freaky in those woods. It wasn't a huge forest. I'm from Lithuania, so this happened in Lithuania. Listen, as a little kid I was very intuitive. And I never liked that forest. I never, especially on the other side, like I have a story about that. Never. But basically, it was summer. We were having a barbecue. There was a bunch of people that came over. So my cousin was there. My nephew was there. He's 1 year older than me. He's my stepsister's kid. So I think that was all for the kids, to be honest. Yeah, and then it was just like a bunch of adults, right? So we were like, okay, like let's go do something. So we go on our bikes. And there was like a little lake by the forest, by the edge of the forest. So I was like, yeah, let's just, guys, like, I'll take you there. Because my sister had taken me there with her friends and they told me a bunch of spooky stories. I've always been a weird kid. I liked spooky stuff from the get-go, from the womb. So I was like, let me take them there, whatever, right? It's daytime. It's like literally the middle of the day. It's not like evening, nothing. And so we get to the lake. It's more like it's tiny. It's a tiny lake, okay? It's a tiny lake. Not pond. It's bigger than a pond. But anyway. So the boy my nephew, and this is right by the edge. So there's like not a lot of houses there. There's like kind of very secluded, right? And the lake is here and then like further there's just like a bunch of bushes. And a fence, but the fence is literally like going through, like the bushes are going through the fence, basically, if that makes sense. And then further down, you can see the forest, right? My nephew decides that he's busting for a pee, and yeah, he's busting for a pee, and he doesn't want to go back home. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna go pee. You guys wait for me. So we're just like on our bikes by the lake, like talking, whatever. The next thing we know, so I must have been like 7 at most. That means my nephew was 8 and my cousin was like 5. Okay. I'm a horrible person, okay? But anyway, so the next thing we know is these 2 children of the corn bitches come out. Tiny boys, right? Tiny boys. They have no emotion on their faces. None. Just like robotic dead. I don't know. Weird. But they're like solid. And they come out of the, there's not enough, like, it's bushes. Like you can't be in the bushes. And there was no sound, by the way. So when we turn to look, it's when they're speaking. And the thing is, I don't know why they were speaking to us. That's another thing, okay? So the boys are right next to him, right? This little boy is holding a butcher knife. And he's like, tell him to stop peeing or we're gonna cut his penis off. What? Now it's funny, but like, what? So me and my cousin hear this, right? We see these little boys. We freak the fuck out. Like, scream. Because like, I think we got so scared because like we could just tell like something was really wrong with these children of the corn beings. So we like scream and like start turning our backs around and like get the frick out of there. He does the same. He doesn't really him about it, and he doesn't really remember this story. So I don't know, did he not see them? But like, I'm not making it up, because I said I asked my niece, my cousin. She remembered it, okay? So I don't know why. I don't know. But anyway, I think he saw. I think he just didn't want to, you know, because it's kind of embarrassing. Because, you know, but he must have, because he also got freaked out. He started running, got on his bike. So we were on our bikes, right? This road, it's like a village, okay? Like potholes, like dirt road, okay? Like it's not, it's a crappy road, right? So my nephew's in front of me, it's me, and then it's my cousin. She's still on like the little, what are those, like helper wheels? Like what are they called? I don't know. Like, you know those little 2 wheels at the back of the bike? What are they called? Like, I don't know what they're called. But anyway, she's got those still, right? And she gets stuck in one of the potholes. And she's like screaming. She's like, Alexandra, wait for me, wait. And she's like bawling her eyes out, like red face, like just bawling and like crying. And she's stuck and she can't like get out. And like she's petrified. I turn around, I look at her and I keep going. I feel so terrible. Actually, okay. I feel really terrible. I really do. But I was scared, okay? I was really scared. I'm sorry. Like, I'm a survive. At least I know that. I feel terrible. I really, not honestly, I do. I was little, okay? Give me a break. So I just keep going. But my nephew, he sees and he turns around and he helps us. So she wasn't left with the little demon children, okay? She was helped. Yeah, and we, like, escaped. But what was that? Because, listen, the bushes were growing through that fence, okay? You cannot, like, just walk through that, okay? Plus, it's not, it's like freaking bushes, like, you have, what? Also, they had no facial expressions. Not at all, okay? And we couldn't hear them walking through the bushes, like, they just appeared. Just appeared. With a huge-ass butcher knife. Just stoic. Just, like, standing there. Like, he was just standing there like this. And, like, I can't repeat it because I'll laugh again. I can't repeat what he said. Now it's really funny. But, like, then it was really scary. Because, like, I thought there was going to be a murder happening. Like, I was so scared. But those words, there was something about those words. Because I don't know if Lithuania has skinwalkers. I don't know. Okay, listen, you don't really hear those stories, right? But the forest, like, that way from my house, I'd only been there twice. And this is what I said, like, I'm really intuitive. Especially as a kid, the stories I have. But, so, and that's, I believe that's why I never wanted to go there, because there's something really wrong with those woods. But my grandma had come to visit for the summer, and she brought my cousin with her, right? So, and my grandma wanted to go in those woods. So we did. She just wanted to have a walk around. And all these stories involve peeing. Like, and my grandma is like, wait, guys, like, girls, I need to pee. Like, just stay here. And so we're like, okay. So she goes behind, like, some tree. I don't know. I don't see it. Like, we're not looking. So we're just hanging out and whatever. And then my grandma, me and my cousin, again, both hear my grandma's voice saying, Alexandra, come here. Alexandra, come here. And, like, she keeps saying that. So we walk in, and then, like, we're young, right? So we're just walking. We don't see the direction, we're walking, whatever. We're walking deep into the woods. And then the next thing we know, my grandma, like, screams. She's like, what are you guys doing? And, like, we'd gone so far into the woods. And we're like, you just called us. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, no, I didn't. And then, like, she, like, quickly got us out of there. So my grandma's dead now, so it's not like I can ask her about it. But yeah, I don't know, because that was her voice, but it was in the complete different direction than where she was. And I just remember being so freaked out because my grandma was so far away. And, like, we just legged it. We did, because I was like, that wasn't you. Like, there was somebody calling my name. And my cousin, obviously, she was a bit of a scaredy cat, so she just, like, nearly cried. She was very scared. So was I, but I kept it in, you know? And then, obviously, my grandma was weirded out because she got us out of there. And we never spoke about it. So, yeah, those words, something was in those words.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely...
Hey y'all, this is part 3 of my ghost stories. In this part, I'm also going to be sharing other people's stories that I know, just because I think they're worth sharing. So one time when I was 12, I was at my friend's house and we were home alone and in her bedroom. She was on the far side of her room doing her makeup in the mirror, and I was sitting in front of her bedroom door on the carpet, and the door was open. So it was really quiet in the house. We didn't have anything on. And it's daytime, and all of a sudden I just got like this weird vibe. So I said to her, "Does it like feel weird to you in here?" And she was like, "Yeah, it does." Well, I had been taking selfies on my back camera because I had an iPhone 3GS, and I was using this app that automatically made everything like colorful. Like my eyes were really bright color. Everything was just colorful. So, it was whatever, and I just went to go take another picture. And I wish I had this picture so bad. It is, okay, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. I took a picture, back camera. I can't see it, right? It takes a second to load, and I go to look at it. I'm just gonna use my door as an example. About this high up in the doorway, there was, like a mist, like a face. I remember it being sort of like wide, and there was two distinct like lighter like circular parts where that like eyes would be. And I really don't know really how else to describe it other than just like you could tell there were like misty eyes, and then just like a general overall head shape that was just like mist. And we believe that that was her uncle, who was a neo-Nazi, and he had died like a couple years before. We were pretty young when he died, and he was just, I mean, he went to prison. I'm trying to say, I mean, if the neo-Nazi part wasn't enough, he also had gone to prison. He had like an 88 tattoo on his neck that also like matched his initials, but you know, he did that on purpose. And so his vibe was weird. So we fully believed that that was him. I honestly do think that was him. I'm just so mad that I don't have the picture because I had like gotten a new phone, and it's been obviously like over a decade since then. So yeah, my mom had some things happen to her as a kid. And one of the things that happened at least a few times, I think, was suddenly she would start hearing people talking, and it wouldn't be just like how I'm talking right now. It would be like a bunch of voices whispering over each other. And she said that they would get louder and louder, and only she could hear them. And they would get so loud to the point where she would just be like, "Stop!" like frustrated, and they would stop. And she, because of this, like went and got tested for schizophrenia when she was an adult, and she does not have schizophrenia. But that fortunately has not happened to me. But yeah, that happened to her. And yeah, she actually still to this day will experience like a negative entity into her room or something. She actually lives with me right now, and that's not happening to us. I don't know what it is with her, but that's happened to her a few times where like she can feel something, and it could be sleep paralysis. But she did say like the last time that happened, she could move. Like she wasn't even asleep, she was just trying to go to sleep, and she felt something enter the room, and she just like told it to fuck off, and it left eventually. So here at this house, the only thing that has happened is when I was starting to get into spirituality and like trying to meditate and, you know, have my crystals and everything. Well, there was a period of time where we would take our dog on a walk every single night, and we live on just like a loop. And over on that side of the neighborhood, there's this street light. Every time we walked by the street light, it would turn off. And that like area was really creepy to us at the time, so it was just like double like hell no. But yeah, like we even saw, you know, a car drive past it and it didn't turn off. Like I don't think it's like motion detected. It just like every time we'd walk by it or past it, it would just shut off. So one time I had asked it like, "Are you a spirit guide? And if you are, turn on." And it did. And it was still like creeping me out, so I had asked it one time, Like, it was creeping us out. So if it was a spirit guide, like, I'm sorry, spirit guide, but when I asked it if it was a spirit guide and it turned on or off, whatever it was, I had said like on 3, so like 1, 2, 3, and it literally did. And I don't know, I just like couldn't tell. So I asked it to stop, and it literally has not done it since then. Well, at the same time that was occurring, every time my boyfriend would walk down the hallway, into the bathroom or like past his office into our room or whatever, his Xbox would turn on and you could hear it. Literally, like, this maybe went on for a week and a half at the most, but like once a day, you walked down the hallway and it would just turn on. And you couldn't even see it from the hallway, so yeah, I don't know. So now I'm gonna share a couple stories from my best friend Dez's house. They have like a 5-level house. And so when you enter the front door, you're on like the middle level, and then you go downstairs and there's a den, and then you can go down more stairs and you're in like the basement. Well, in this den, they had like a really big sectional, and it was just like everyone like slept down there all the time because it was really comfortable, but like sometimes it had like a weird vibe to it. And one time I was up in the kitchen and you can like see a little bit of the den from the fridge. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone down there, and I looked, didn't see anything. Like, I just saw it on my peripheral, and I literally went to go check to see if someone was down there, and no one was there. They apparently, I think, have seen something like peek around the corner of the sofa, like in the one of the corners of the room. And the story that they've told me that really gets me is one time Des and her younger sister Kirsten, who I'm also friends with, they were both sleeping on the couch, and Des was by Kirsten's feet, and so Kirsten's head is like further away. Anyways, Des wakes up in the middle of the night, and she just like sees the shadow cross the room, and suddenly Kirsten goes, "Did you see that?" So not only was Des awake randomly, Kirsten also woke up randomly and just like kind of knew that Des was awake. And they both saw this like fucking thing cross the room. One time their brother Alex had left his phone in the den on accident before he went to school, and he claimed that he had like closed out of all the apps. Well, Des had gotten home before anybody else, like in the middle of the day, and she could hear his phone playing music. Well, his phone was open on Pandora, playing music, and the song that was playing was Leave Me Alone. So I don't know if that like that song was a chance or whatever, but it shouldn't have been playing music. I think that's all that happened at that house. I took my coworker home one time, and she was telling me the story of her and her mom trying to, like, I don't know what they were trying to do, like who they were trying to contact on the Ouija board, but the Ouija board started saying that her mom's mom came through, and they were like kind of wary about it at first, but it was giving like the right information that they asked for. So they're kind of thinking like, you know, this is grandma, this is mom, whatever. And they had set a circle of salt around themselves in the Ouija board because they were both like spiritually inclined and knew to like protect themselves and all that. And at some point during the session, the Ouija board, it turned, whatever something it said, I don't remember, it turned bad, and the girl, my coworker, looked behind her, and the circle of salt had like a little break in it, like something just moved the salt. That's as far as I remember that story, but I remember thinking that was really creepy. Oh, kind of like back to my spirit guide situation that was going on. We had LED lights in our den. Like, me and my boyfriend were just chilling, and they were on a solid color, but suddenly it just started changing, and the remote was like underneath the couch and like sitting up, so it wasn't hitting anything, and it was just, I don't know, changing. But I think that was kind of like a good thing. I don't think that was, it wasn't creepy, but I do think that my spirit guides were trying to contact me, maybe.
me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Me, my cousins and siblings always around the same age. I was around 8 years old. We in the back room, which is my room of my house, and all of our parents is outside in front of the house. So we know there's nobody else in the house with us. The hallway is completely dark. I'm in the mirror doing my hair. I was doing two ponytails. Lie to y'all not. I seen two eyes in the damn hallway and they were damn near the ceiling. We knew that it was not somebody we know because they were not that tall. That was not normal. And they were not normal looking eyes. And we just started freaking out. I'm not the only one that saw it. That's why I'm saying we. Everybody just started looking at each other and looking in the mirror, then looking in the hallway, start freaking out. We ran outside to tell our parents, I got 1 ponytail on, 1 ponytail off. They talking about, oh, that must have been Mary.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go.
As you guys know from my previous videos, I have been doing the paranormal. I've been into it since I was a little girl. And I've been investigating for about 5 years now. And I just started a YouTube channel. It's linked in my bio. But I want to take you guys back to 2016. I had just moved into a new house the year prior. And this house was in the town's museum because it was a part of the Underground Railroad. When we first moved into the house, we were told we should not go in the basement because there's asbestos in there. That's why the house was so cheap. And we never really got it taken care of, but we had the basement blocked off, so we had never gone down there. The floor in the kitchen had a spot where it was raised up under the linoleum, and it was a big square space. And we put our kitchen table over it, but it was just super weird that it was just this random big square in the middle of the kitchen under the linoleum. Didn't think much of it, and we never really went into the basement to see if we could see above, to see like where it would be and what it was. But that's just preface for how this story is gonna go. So the door to the basement was in a hallway right next to where our bathroom was. And we were kind of a close-knit family, so like we left the bathroom door open. It was just me and my mom and my sister. So we always left the bathroom door open when we'd be getting ready in the morning, just in case the other one had to run in, take a shower. I don't know if you guys had super close-knit families like that, but mine was. It wasn't weird. Don't make it weird. So I believe I was in my 3rd year of high school, so my junior year. And I was straightening my hair, getting ready for school, and I thought I saw my mom in the hallway, just kind of out of the corner of my eye while I'm straightening my hair. I like look over and I, kind of seen like a shadow in the hallway because it was dark. Didn't think anything of it. I said something to her. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I could see her in the hallway. So she didn't answer, so I looked over. Nobody's there. Automatically, I yelled for her. I was like, Mom, 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 come here right now. She was asleep when I was yelling for her, and she came in. She's like, what? Like, what do you want? I'm trying to sleep. Like, I gotta go to work soon. And I was like, were you just in the hallway? And she was like, no, girl, I was in bed. So I stopped straightening my hair, and I go to try and find my sister, and I was like, hey, bitch, were you in the hallway just now trying to get into the bathroom? She's also in bed, and she throws her pillow at me, and she's like, get the fuck out of my room. So I was very scared. I was gross. So I had not straightened the other side of my hair, so I went back in the bathroom to continue to straighten my hair, and again, corner of my eye. And at that point, I said, fuck this. I threw my hair up into a bun. I did not finish straightening it, and I left for school. So we didn't really talk about it because my mom was kind of distant, I guess. She worked a lot, so a lot of the times when I would get home from school, it'd just be me and my sister chilling there, and my mom would be at work until 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock sometimes. And so that same night, me and my sister were sitting in the living room, and we were watching TV, and we heard someone walking in the kitchen, and we thought Mom was home, but we didn't hear the front door open. So my sister gets up, to go see if mom's in the kitchen, see what we're gonna do for dinner, and apparently nobody was in the kitchen. And so she came back and she sat down. We continued on watching TV. I think we were watching like Family Guy or something. And then we hear something in the kitchen, like glass breaking. At this point, our thought was, oh my gosh, someone's breaking into the house right now and we need to call mom. So we called mom and she said, go look again, make sure nobody's here. Maybe something just fell over when you guys were walking past. It's an old house. Maybe something, you know, the floor was settling, something fell off. And then we ended up locking all of the doors until mom got home. And that night we went to bed after mom had gotten home. And my mom, I hear her screaming in her bedroom. So me and my sister, we both like got up at the same time and we ran downstairs to where my mom's room was, and she was like fully asleep, like 110% asleep. So we woke her up and we were like, Mom, like, are you okay? You were just screaming. And she was like kind of sleepy. She's like, whatever, just go back to bed, like everything's fine, whatever. And little things like that would happen. So that's just an example of one day where it was super active. And then one day we had a really bad storm and all the power went out, so we had to go into the basement to check the breakers. And then when we went into the basement, like me, my sister, and my mom, we all went down there together with our flashlights in hand, ready to fix some shit, you know, we don't need no man, 3 women, we gonna do this shit, you know what I mean? So we all go down to the basement to check the breakers, and we hear constant walking above us. All 3 of us are in the basement, and we just hear like someone walking across the floor. And then I like kind of look up and I'm like, what the hell? And right where we heard the walking was where the kitchen was, and we looked on the ceiling, pointed our flashlights up, and there was a fucking trap door. That's what the raised linoleum was. It was a big square trap door, probably 4 feet by 4 feet. So we got the power back on, we went back upstairs, and we didn't hear anything for the rest of that night. After a few months of just like little shit happening, it started to get like worse and worse, where it was becoming like every day we were constantly hearing things in the house. And my mom thought it would be a good idea to burn some sage in the house and see if that helps. So we did that, and the activity stopped for a little bit, but once it came back, it was like 10 times worse. Me and my sister were waking up out of our sleep, like seeing people in the corner of our rooms, feeling like we were being choked. It was fucking terrifying. So we went to the museum because when we first bought the house, we had known that it was part of the Underground Railroad and it was like in the museum and stuff. And we went to the museum to see if we can get some more like, you know, research on the house that we could just know a little bit more about it. There was 5 documented people that had passed away in the house. One of whom was a woman who looked eerily similar to my mother. Eerily similar. The long, dark hair and like the round face, the longer nose looked exactly like my mom. The woman who was in the pictures was the lady of the house who was helping hide people who were escaping from slavery under the trap door. The basement door used to not be a thing. It used to only be the trap door. I guess they didn't build the basement door until way later after. And there was some allegations of her abusing some of the children of the families who had escaped, and she was not a very kind spirit, and apparently she had a really bad temperament problem, and she had some mental health issues as well, recorded by her husband, who would write in his diary about his wife's madness. So we learned a little bit more about it, and we kind of learned to live with it and all of the happenings, and it became super normalized in the household, and we just stopped paying attention to it. And once you stop paying attention to something like that, normally it'll settle down. So that's what we did, and that's what happened. But it was just a really odd way that we found out, really odd story, and I just thought I would share it with you guys. And yeah, if you haven't already, please follow me and subscribe to the YouTube channel that is in the bio. I do paranormal investigations. My last video was on Marilyn and Dennis Depew, and I went to the crime scene location of where some of the things happened between them, and I would really, really love it if you guys went and checked that out.
A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was 8.
Hey guys, this is Kim and Alan from If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything podcast. And we are jumping on the viral trend of telling the most unbelievable ghost story that is absolutely true. So this happened years ago.
If you have ghosts, you have everything.
Okay, what he said. So this happened years ago when we first started dating. And we've been together.
Dating for 3 or 4 years, but yes.
We've been together for 19 years. So 15 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. We had some interesting phenomenon that had happened here on the family farm. So
first, a little bit of a background. So we live in southern Indiana. We live in a specific area of southern Indiana, very heavily associated with 2 unique cultures. One, potentially the Prince-Matic culture, for anybody who knows what that is. And the other, what used to be called the Southern Death Complex, now called the Southern Ceremonial Complex, which was indigenous American, but had a lot of Mesoamerican influence, including grottos and human sacrifice, animal sacrifice, associated heavily with caves and death and rebirth. We live on a farm that's been in my family since the 1940s that my grandparents bought. And there's always been a little bit of weirdness around the farm, but at this particular time, there was a lot of weirdness, and to be fair, I wasn't probably in the best mental health I could be in at the time, as I was farming full-time and trying to make a living doing that, and spending all of my time on the farm, sometimes not leaving the farm for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. But in the fall of the first year that this started happening, we started noticing odd things, like weird noises coming from the woods. First, it started off as sort of, what you might associate with some of the Ohio Bigfoot sounds that have been recorded over time.
Whoops, whistles,
hollers,
wood knocking.
Enough that it scared away the coyotes, and the coyotes were always very brave and very bold because we had chickens and they would try to get those and eat those. But whenever this was going on, the coyotes would stay a good mile to a mile and a half away, and they would howl and scream and shatter their voices as though they were absolutely terrified, but never come any closer, ever. This was very quickly followed up by my father, who used to make jokes. My grandfather always made this joke, and I know it's not politically correct, but I'll say it anyways. My grandfather, whenever it would snow, he would say, "Well, I hope it snows asshole deep to a tall Indian." My dad, for whatever reason, started joking around with our dogs. We had beagle dogs, which are great bioindicators, guys, that lived in the house, and the dogs would just randomly start looking at the hallway some nights when these sounds were going on, after the sounds would stop or before they would start. And they would look like they were watching someone walk down the hallway, and my dad would say things like, "Oh, look, it's the tall Indian," or whatever. Well, the dogs would go off, and they would immediately start barking and losing
Not
their
just
shit.
barking, growling, and watching something walk from one end of the house to the other.
We watched as a rocking chair in the living room started rocking of its own accord. We also had a door that closes tight without any problems, just randomly pop open. Doorknob twisted and everything.
Yes,
where we could
and
see
when
it.
we say close tight, like when you turn the knob to open it, the door would pop. Like the knob would pop when it would come loose.
Cabinet open and close, all that kind of fun stuff happened. I'd forgotten about that even when we did the podcast, so that just popped in there. Shortly thereafter, this was followed by incredibly large, impossibly large dog footprints, but in sets of 2s, not of sets of 4s.
Things running across the roof.
Well, we'll get there. We're not there yet. So first and foremost, we heard the sound. The neighbors called us that live in the woods just down the road from the house that we lived in at the time, and said, "Hey, are you hearing this?" And asked if we had our dogs inside. Our dogs were all inside. We went outside and we heard the two somethings. I don't know what they were. I don't know how to describe what they sounded like. They were just growling and yelling, and it sounded like they were ripping each other apart, breaking trees, etc. Dogs were in the house. They were unharmed. We went out the next day. I could find no broken trees, no blood, no sign of struggle anywhere in the woods. I'm a pretty good tracker. I've always hunted my whole life, squirrels and rabbits, things of that nature. No signs whatsoever that anything had happened in the woods. We then get a frantic call from a neighbor who tells us, and a very, very straightforward neighbor who tells us, "Hey, I need you to come back here to the back of the woods. We've got a feed plot back here, and it looks like we have a crop circle." Which was incredibly interesting.
And it was a sorghum patch, and the grass was laid over. Sorghum is grass.
It's bent at a 45.
It was bent
straight over, but not
straight
broken.
over, but not broken. And in a circular pattern, several circular patterns.
So Dad and I jumped in the truck. He jumped in the front seat of the truck. I jumped in the back like a proper hillbilly with a shotgun. I don't know what the fuck I thought I was going to do with a shotgun, but I had a shotgun. And we headed off through the woods. As we came over the top of the hill, we came down over the crest of the hill and down this little valley. A coyote runs out in front of the truck. And the coyote stops in front of the truck, not concerned at all about the truck, the headlights, the humans, or anything, and starts yapping, terrified, back towards the woods. I shot towards the coyote, not at the coyote, to try to scare it off. Shot the shotgun twice, basically at its feet. Coyote didn't move. We almost had to bump it with the truck. Went back and saw the crop circle around the same time. Same neighbors and their relatives started reporting sightings of large cats going in and out of their barn. Of course, these are large black cats. Interestingly enough, one of our dogs was attacked twice by something and just absolutely ripped to shreds.
And we had to take her to the vet to get stitched up.
Lived both times, but something definitely attacked her. The interesting thing is we believe this to be a trickster spirit associated specifically with Pekin, Indiana, the area just north of Pekin, Indiana, and also a little bit east of Pekin, Indiana, that is associated with certain cave springs in the area, certain legends in the area. We've interviewed several other people around Pekin who grew up here who have stories of high strangeness and a trickster-like being playing with them. We came to the conclusion it was a trickster because whatever we were listening to or thinking it might have been at the time, if we said the word Bigfoot,
that's how it manifested.
It would manifest exactly as Bigfoot. If we said the word Dogman, it would manifest as Dogman. We watched a thing on the Hopkinsville, Kentucky Goblins one time, and we heard something run across our
the roof
that sounded
at
like
night.
Someone let Warwick fucking Davis run across our roof twice.
Yeah.
Went outside with the shotgun again, nothing on the roof. Whatever we thought that it might be, that's how it manifested. To the extent that even years later, things still happen to some degree. My mother, she saw what she described as a tall, naked Native American man standing on the hill that she could see through,
just
watching
in a
her
loincloth.
For several minutes and then disappearing into nothingness. So it was a pretty scary thing. There were a lot of very strange things that happened, a lot of very high strangeness that goes beyond even what we're talking about here. I was coming home one evening. This went on. This would go on in the fall and the spring of the year for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
probably 2 years, maybe.
And like you said, it's still some things happen. It's not to the extreme that it was.
Came home one evening from Kim's house when she was living with her mom and dad to come back to our driveway, which is about a half-mile long gravel driveway here in Pekin, Indiana. And as I hit the straight stretch of the driveway in my old black truck, I see lights. And as I get closer to it, I see what looks like a small Cessna. Looks exactly like a small Cessna.
Like in the driveway. And there's not enough room between the creek bank and the railroad bed for a Cessna to land.
You probably could, but it'd be difficult and dangerous. The other part of this is these lights didn't look like normal lights. They were somewhat hazy. In my recollection, they were somewhat foggy almost in the way that they appeared. Long and short of it is I got closer to this plane because, of course, I parked my truck like a dumb redneck and got out and looked. There was no one in this plane. Now, it had a very clear cockpit. I couldn't see any controls or anything of that nature, but this was not a drone. This was made to look like an airplane. Now, the strange thing is this airplane up and took off from my driveway, but it didn't take off like an airplane. It went straight up, and once it got in the air, it took off like a shooting star and was absolutely gone. Mm-hmm. We live next to some railroad tracks. We think there might be some significance to that as well. I have come to the conclusion that it was a trickster. We shot at this thing. Not the smartest decision that I've ever made. One night this was all going on. I walked down to the edge of the woods and I saw several of whatever this was trying to be as a shadow sort of character on two legs walk out of the edge of the woods. I'm standing there. Kim's standing on the porch. I shoot at it. It screams, lets out a terrible howl like you've never heard before, and takes off through the woods. And it sounds like
he comes back to the house and says, "I don't know what makes that noise."
It sounds like it's literally tearing down good-sized 6 to 8 inch trees
yeah,
and knocking them down. Go out the next morning again.
Can't find anything. Can't even find where a bullet has grazed a tree. So, guys, you can hear the entirety of this story on our podcast. I'm going to link the first episode. This is a 2-part episode. In the description, and give it a listen, and we hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to hear more, let us know.
Episodes 2 and 3 of If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything, and we're about to start season 5.
Yep, you've got a lot of catching up to do if you're just now joining us. Thanks, guys.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was
Okay, so y'all know my mom passed away 4 years ago. And a year or two into her passing, I remember laying in bed. I had to go to work. I was laying there one day because I had to be there late afternoon. Oh my God, I was falling off the bed with my man down. So I remember I was turned to my back one morning. My mama, when she used to lay next to me, or she'll come and lay next to me and poke me in my back. So one day I was asleep and I had to be up within like an hour or two, and I felt her touch just poke. So I've always experienced like paranormal activity a lot growing up. And I don't know, I think I shared one about my grandmother about that. But yeah, that day I felt her poking in my back, and I woke up, I turned around, and guess what? Nobody was there. So yeah, my mom came to visit me. And I never heard nothing from nobody. Because my mom passed away at the hotel, she was sick. So I didn't, unexpectedly. So I haven't heard nothing. I met some people, and oh no, I do that no more. So it's about my mom. So I'm set up for this. So besides my mom passing, when she passed in the hotel that we were staying at the moment, this particular hotel had bad juju. And I hated my mom passed there because I heard people that got killed there. It was always something crazy going on. After, and if I show y'all a picture of this hotel, y'all, you live in Atlanta, in Decatur or West Chapel, y'all know what hotel type they used to be over there. After, and it's boarded up behind the shells. So after my mom died, I moved. Like 2 years later, I heard somebody got killed. That was like third or fourth murder there. I think it was more. But my mom felt like my mom's presence was there. After I left, she left with it. Tell me why I heard that the hotel, one of the rooms, the plug sparked and caught a light fire. One of the rooms caught on fire. They came out. The hotel was so bad. Like, I don't know. It was a security guard that got killed. I don't know what juju he had, but after he got killed, the hotel went down and got shut down. Found out the plugs were messed up. They didn't keep up with it. They shut that hotel down. Yeah, it might not be scary to y'all, but it was scary to me. Because all the people that died in there was like, I would walk by and just look, and you can just feel the energy. So I'm glad my mom had me going. But yeah, that old young hotel on Wesley Club, or Wesley Chapel, one of them in Decatur, Georgia. Y'all know, if you got killed over there, I believe they still roaming on. Because all it is over there now is crackheads. And they'll tell you they see something. They don't even be high and can see people walk by the window. Because the way the windows are. Because I remember when I went to go stand up there at the gate, there's no lights. One of them lights cut on that pool court where the pool was supposed to be. It was a room right there. One of them lights cut on. I ran like it.
Okay, last one, because the ghosts really are not my thing. That's my husband's thing. He's the ghost hunter. I used to go with him though, and I used to really enjoy it, but now I am far too afraid for that life. But we used to ghost hunt like every weekend. We worked with this company who would rent out a location and you could stay overnight and investigate, and it was a lot of fun until things started happening at our house. So we had the most adorable little townhouse. It had a little garage, and then you walked in and there was this long hallway, and then there was like an open area, kitchen, little dining area, and a living room. And then upstairs there were 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. So since we were newlyweds, we just had like our primary bedroom, and then we had like an office and a craft room because we didn't have children or anything. Like, it was just us in this little house. So the first thing that I remember is It was a Sunday morning, and we had agreed to go to church with one of our families. I don't know if it was mine or his. And I was downstairs getting clothes, because that's where we had a little laundry room, where that was. And my husband was coming out of our primary bathroom when we hear screaming coming from our office. So it's like this screeching sound and then like a person yelling. And so I'm at the bottom of the stairs, terrified. My husband comes racing out of our bedroom and goes into the office, where he finds some walkie-talkies that we had, like for ghost investigations, that were sitting on a charger off, had turned on, and had picked up another channel of people like yelling at each other back and forth. Or so I assume. I don't know. Like, I still to this day don't know like what was coming through other than like yelling. And we know they had not been on because we would have heard them all night. We would have heard the static sound. There's no explanation for how they made no sound all night and then were on high volume with, you know, these yelling voices out of nowhere. It just doesn't make sense. So the next thing I remember is that my mom was over, and she was sitting at our kitchen island. I was standing on the other side of the island in the kitchen, and my husband was sitting on the couch. So remember, this is one big like open floor plan room. Behind my mom, we had a little dining setup. We had a 4-top table, and next to it was a wall of windows. And so I had like curtains and blinds and had everything kind of decorated. So we're just sitting there talking when suddenly the blinds fly out of the window, go over the table, and hit the ground. The problem here is that they were the kind of blinds that latch in so that they don't fall out. And when my husband got up to inspect and see what had happened, the little lock was still closed. So there's no way that they could have feasibly gotten out of that locking mechanism and relocked itself. I don't know, it was weird. We would come home and we would find the little, like in the garage, we had like a little water heater closet. That door would be open all of the time for no real reason, because the door knob will like shut securely. So I don't know how it could have opened by itself when only this guy was home while we were both at work. And then the last one didn't happen to us per se, but it's like the freakiest one to me. We had DirecTV out to come. I think they were like swapping out our equipment for new or something. But there was like an installer there. And we are the kind of people who aren't going to like hover over you if you're doing something at our house. We're not going to like make you feel like we think you're stealing from us. We're going to kind of give you your space. If you need us, come tell us. If you don't, just let us know when you're done. So we were in different rooms, and my husband ended up going downstairs, which is where this guy was, to get something out of the kitchen. And the guy said, "Hey, do you ever see anybody over there?" And he points to that dining area and the windows that the blinds had fallen out of. Now on the other side, like outside of the house, there was a walkway that you could use to get from like one side of the neighborhood to like, there was a community pool and stuff. And so my husband is like, okay, he's seen somebody walking and thinks that's our property. So he said, yeah, people use this as a walkway to get to like the pool and the gym. It's not a big deal. And the man says, oh, no. I mean, inside. And so my husband is like, no, carry on. So the guy says that he has gone out to his truck to get, you know, whatever he needed. And he says, twice I've come in and seen a woman standing in the corner over there. This was right before my husband was leaving to go on like a weekend trip, and I was supposed to be staying home. I made my mom come stay with me because I was not about to be in that house by myself with just my dog. Now, keep in mind, there's no way that this DirecTV guy could have known that my husband was a ghost hunter, that I had dabbled in it. We didn't have equipment out. It's not like we advertised, hey, ghost hunters live here. He just thought he was telling like people who lived in this house that he had seen something really creepy in their house, I guess just to make sure we were safe. I don't know. So the only other thing that I can remember is sometimes I would go to bed before my husband, and I would be in that like not quite asleep, not still awake time of falling asleep. where I would sense him come into the room and he would go to his dresser, which has always been across from the foot of our bed. And then he'd kind of stand there for a second at the foot of the bed, and I would realize that he was there, and then I would hear him cough in the other room or change a channel on a TV that's on or open a door to where I know he's not in the room with me. But those situations never felt scary to me. I never felt like I wasn't safe, which is odd because I am normally the type who wants to run from the room. If anything paranormal happens, I'm closed off. I don't want it. I don't want to experience it ever. That's happened in that house and our current house. And I've just always felt comforted, which is so weird. That's not a thing that I would ever think would happen with me if I have paranormal experiences. I don't want that. I'm terrified. We moved out of that little house like 10 years ago last month, and sometimes I miss it, but I definitely do not miss the activity. I'm not like I don't want any of it. Anyways, that's my little ghost story. Now back to your regular bookish content. Love you, okay, bye.
I have been tagged in this lovely lady's stitch so many times, so I'll share my crazy ghost experience. I have so many. Welcome to my shop. It's an old Victorian funeral home. If that doesn't set the scene, I don't know what will, but I took this shop on around about 3 years ago now, and when I first took it on, I used to stop upstairs just because there was that much work that needed to be done. It was just the easiest thing to do. Now, back then, I didn't know what the shop was originally. I just didn't have that information available. Didn't really cross my mind to really go back that far. So, took it on and thought, you know, wow, amazing place. So many rooms, look like little nooks and crannies, and it's just a little bit weird. You know, old cobbles going all the way up to the front of the building. Great. Now, taking you back 3 years ago, on this particular night, I've got goosebumps thinking about it, but when I was asleep upstairs, I was woken up by someone shouting, not talking, shouting the name, Joseph, Joseph, Joseph. Now, I thought, this is some crazy what's going on kind of situation. I thought, is this something that's just, am I having some sort of weird awakening dream? What's going on? Didn't think anything of it, carried on, and it started to happen on a regular occurrence, like when I was stopping upstairs. And one of my friends kindly decided to do the census on the building. She's like, why don't you do the census? You know, let's have a look at what it used to be, background of it, and that kind of thing. And this is when we found out, going through the records, that it was a fully functional Victorian funeral home. It had a livery on the back. The horse-drawn carriages used to come up into this room and collect the deceased from the garage. The garage is where, you know, you pass through to this room. A lot of people don't tend to want to go in there, which I find, you know, well, I don't find it weird now because obviously I know, but so many people are creeped out by next door, but I can understand why, because obviously that's where the deceased were. But as we were going through the records and just trying to make sense of everything and just the whole fascinating subject of it and this building, the Victorian funeral director, his name was Joseph. Is that a coincidence? I don't think it is. I think too many things have happened here, and you will see on my TikTok that I've spoken about some of the previous things that have happened with the CCTV as well. There's so much more to this world. There is so much more to this world, but yeah, it happened on a regular occasion. Joseph used to just shout his name at me 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Weird times.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Okay, so
story time about my one of many ghost stories that I have. To be honest, I do have a lot, but this one's the most special and I hold dear to my heart. I haven't really told too many people about it just because it's a memory that I kind of want to cherish. So my papa, when I was like 11 years old, this man basically raised me up until then. He was literally like my dad because my dad passed on when I was young. And he was living with us at the moment. He was old. He definitely took care of things around the house, even though he wasn't supposed to. He had a huge ulcer on his stomach. And, yeah, he was just pretty sick at the end of it. But, about his death. In the middle of the night, we all woke up. My mom came and got us all, but we were all kind of like already awake. My mom's kind of just always been that way about death. Unfortunately, she knows before it happens, which is kind of a burden if you really think about it. But she wakes us up and we go to him and we're there for a couple hours, like saying our goodbyes and everything like that. It reaches like 10 a.m. in the morning. We've all been up since like 3 a.m. Like we got woke up in the middle of the night by my mom to go and lay with him because she knew this was happening. He wasn't really responsive because he was tired and just trying to hang on there. He didn't want us to like watch him pass. So I asked him, I was like, Papa, it's okay. Like, we know you're in pain. Like, we're gonna miss you, but like, it's okay. And then he just told me that he was fine. He was dancing with my grandma. We called her Nanny. And it was so beautiful because like you could see him just like in a gaze. And it looks like he was like looking at the love of his life again. And then jump forward to my ghost story after he passes on. It was the next day. I woke up super early by myself and I was still like kind of out of it. But then I rubbed my eyes and I looked at him and I was like, what are you doing? Because I went to the kitchen and he was standing there washing dishes. And he looks at me. He goes, I'm fine. And then I cried because he was fine and he was with my grandma again and they were dancing. And it just proves that people are waiting for you on the other side. I've never doubted it since then. And it was so beautiful to watch him let go and be with his wife again because he loved her so much. That's my ghost story. Okay, bye.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
I'm really late to this trend, but I promise I have a good one. So I used to have a friend that would pass out, like have seizures and see dead people or a dead person. So I grew up competitively dancing, and if you know anything about that, that's your life. 24/7, that's your life. And it was the middle of the season. I remember we were rehearsing for competition, and one of my best friends had passed out and she started seizing. In the middle of like all of this commotion, the music cuts out and the lights start flickering like this, and we're all staring at each other like, what is happening? She comes out of it and she's just in the zone. Like, no one can speak to her. She's not responding. It was so scary. I was so scared. Like, I felt awful for my best friend to be like going through something like this. It was nuts. So it kind of made sense that she would take time from the studio and kind of just like focus on her health and stuff like that. Her mom was a nurse or like worked in a hospital, and so she was going to good doctors, but no one could figure out, like, there was nothing irregular on any scans that she had going on. Like, multiple doctors, nothing. So I had gone over to her house one day to see her because I had truly like missed her so much. Like, my best friend. Well, she's like, knew I was like very open-minded and stuff. So she was like, I have something to tell you. And she says to me, Maddie, when I'm having these seizures, I keep seeing this woman. I was just like, what? So she says, yeah, I keep seeing this woman. She's describing her to me. And she says she looks like she's, college age. She's younger. And she has blonde hair and, a bunch of other descriptions. She keeps telling me, she's like, this woman, keeps showing me this song. And it was something by the Spice Girls or something like that. I think that's what I remember, Spice Girls. She's like, it's stuck in my head, like 24/7. I can't get it out. She goes, that's not all. That's not all. She says, this woman keeps telling me to talk to Miss Nikki. And Miss Nikki was our studio director at the time. And the thing about Miss Nikki is that she is a God-fearing woman. So you're talking to dead people? Like, what? So eventually she goes to meet up with our director to speak to her about what's going on. She says, I have no idea what the reason is, but she explains her situation. And this woman really needs me to talk to you about some things. So she begins to describe her to my studio director, and she just goes white, mouth open, like, and my best friend says to her, she wants me to tell you, thank you for the photo. So that sent her up a wall. Like, she didn't want to speak to her anymore. She was done. A few days later, she had contacted my best friend and said, how do you know this? Because the woman you're describing was my best friend in college who passed away from cancer. And the photo you're speaking about was during the viewing. I had placed a Polaroid of two of us together in her casket. She goes, but here's the thing. I haven't told anybody about that in 20 years. Not even my husband. So that was like, what? How do you even accept things like that? But the craziest thing is, as soon as my best friend told my director this, her seizure stopped. Never again. So yeah, that's my ghost story. And let me know if you want to hear more about how I used to talk to dead people when I was little.
So you want to hear an old-fashioned ghost story, do you? But a true one? Okay. Trigger warning. These are designed to catch your eye, create a memory, and mostly get you to spend some money. Most were fun, quirky, interesting, and silly. But not all were. Some were designed to appeal to the darker side of human nature. Some of these attractions were definitely the successors of the circus sideshow and the cabinet of curiosities. In fact, some actually had the contents of old cabinets of curiosities in them. There were things like reptile farms, sometimes nothing more than one rattlesnake in a pit, odd animals, photos of the bodies of executed outlaws, usually buried nearby, mummified human remains, baby aliens, jars of formaldehyde containing the bodies of feral sharks, two-headed lambs, and stillborn babies, human babies with birth defects. All bizarre, grotesque, and yet strangely alluring. Sometimes it was just photographs of people or things that may have once graced the booths of freak shows. We were at a roadside attraction. It may have even been Wall Drug itself, I don't remember. But they had a restaurant inside that offered a buffet dinner, and that was why we were there at that place. It was highly rated, and for us it would be a welcome break from the road. Now, this destination had all of its more gruesome attractions in a separate, limited access area that was near the restaurant. You had to be 18 years of age or older to enter, or have an adult's permission. Now, my dad was a NAM vet, and he didn't have any issue with me at my age getting inoculated into the harsher aspects of this world. We were in the last room of this annex when the crowd began to thin out. The restaurant had opened for seating for the dinner buffet, and my dad tapped me on the shoulder and let me know that he was leaving to meet with my mom and my little brother to find a table for us. The room that I was in was all photographs, nearly sealing the floor with the results of lynchings. Most were accompanied by news articles about what had occurred. It was a very dark and unflinching look at one of the most evil parts of our history. I was equally parts appalled, horrified, and fascinated. And I was taking my time. I wanted to read every article because I felt somehow obligated to the victims to try and understand their stories. Now the room had thinned out. I heard someone approach me from behind, and my mind registered their presence, and I expected to be told to hurry along because things were clearly closing. But instead, a man's voice quietly asked me, "What do you think of my work?" I considered my answer carefully. I said, Are these yours? It's quite an impressive collection. No, that's not what I meant, the man answered. Did you take these pictures? I was confused because a lot of these pictures went back almost 100 years. No, that's not what I meant either, he answered. Now I was really confused, so I started turning around to see who I was talking to. You'll figure it out, he said, and he chuckled. So I turned around and looked, and there was nobody in the room. It was empty, except for me. The only door was across the room. The room was pretty small, so I rushed over and looked out the door. But the entire section was completely empty. At the end of the long hallway near the restaurant was a single employee waiting with a rope ready to close off the section. I went up to him. Did a man just come through here? Because there was nowhere else that anybody could go. Nope, he replied. Last person through was almost 10 minutes ago. We've been waiting for you. You're the last one. I headed to the restaurant looking for my family as that employee closed off the section and turned out the lights. Sweet dreams. So you want to hear an old-fashioned ghost story, do you? But a true one? Okay. Trigger warning. It was 1974. My father was a military man, and we'd been living in Europe. I was in my early teens, and I had a little brother born overseas who had never even been in America. My father decided that since we'd spent the last 7 years traveling and exploring Europe, we, especially my brother and I, should see as much of our own country as we possibly could when we had the chance. Honestly, it was one of my father's best ideas. We started in New Jersey and traveled all the way to Washington State, down through California, and across the Southwest to New Mexico. Now my father, never one to pass up a teaching opportunity, assigned me the role of navigator. I was clueless on how to read a map. Lesson 1, I remember, was learning how to properly fold and unfold the doggone things. Every day, he gave me a lesson in navigation. And not just map reading either. He taught me that in the times of the wagon trains at night, the travelers would point the tongues of their wagons towards the North Star so that they would know the directions in the morning. And that lesson was quickly followed by how to locate the North Star, how to tell the direction by the sun, and things like that. Each day, he gave me our destinations, and it was up to me to find the best route. And he let me make mistakes. If I chose the wrong path, that's where we went. Sometimes, it got interesting, but I learned a lot. And we had 2 main goals on this trip. One was to reconnect with family that we hadn't seen in years, most of whom had never met my brother. And 2, to see as many of the natural and historical landmarks of this country as we could. And we got to see a lot of the major sites. Starting with the Statue of Liberty and moving west, we visited famous battle sites. We hunted fossils in the Badlands of South Dakota, saw the Grand Canyon and Bryce's Canyon, Mount Rushmore, went to Yosemite National Park and saw Old Faithful. We drove through the giant woods at the Sequoia National Park and a lot more. It was truly a great trip. Now, in between those major stops, to keep things interesting, we visited roadside attractions. Now, the biggest and most famous of these was Walled Road, South Dakota. But back in the 1970s, there were roadside attractions everywhere. The world's biggest ball of string, or rubber bands, or paint, plaster of dinosaurs, animal menageries. Now, this was all before the internet, so if you wanted to see the strange, the weird, the bizarre, unless the circus was in town, you had to go to it. These were designed to catch your eye, create a memory, and mostly get you to spend some money. Most were fun, quirky, interesting, and silly. But not all were.